we can say that the file handling with respect to Python programming will allows a user to store his data permanently. So if I give a R, then it specifies that a data format has to be read. This file has to be read. At the end, as we know, as it is a append command, we are appending this new thing, that is new line added statement. So if you want to open any of a file, then we can go with the keyword of open off. Hello everyone, I welcome you all to the second session of Unit 3. Today's session is all about file handling that's under Python programming. Over here, my name is Deepa Kutnikar. I'm working as an assistant professor under Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. Let's move forward and understand the agenda of today's session. In today's session, we will be discussing each and every bit regarding files, like what is a file, then what are the different kind of operations that can be offered with respect to file, like opening a file, closing a file, reading a file, and writing into a file. Up next, we will be also studying the methods, followed by append methods, then read method, write method, then finally how to delete and rename a file. So these are the things that we discuss in our today's session. So let's start our session with introduction to file handling. So yes, a file is formed when we write some important information or when a user has written some information and he needs to save that information for his future references, correct? So now, what are the operations that can be considered with respect to these files, and how to read from a file, how to write into a file, and rest of the things are also discussed in today's session. Thus, file handling in Python. We can say that the file handling with respect to Python programming will allows a user to store his data permanently. Then he can access it whenever it is required. Also, he can modify that stored information or the data, as well as read the data from the external files. So this is all about handling the operations with respect to the file, or in general, we call this thing as file handling. Now, let's see what are the common applications that supports this file handling process. So, the first application is a log file. So, log files will be having that set of information. The next thing is a student record and configuration files. So, these are the set of common applications that is related with respect to file handling. Now, let's understand the types of files that are acceptable in Python programming. So, we have two kinds of files. The first one is text files and the next is a binary files. So, the text file will be in a normal formats like .txt, .csv and .log. So, these are the formats which a file can be saved in, correct? And next we have binary files. So why to go with binary? Because as we know, the information or the data has to be stored. If it has to be stored, then it has to be converted to the binary files, isn't it? Because the systems or a computer will only understand the binary language, isn't it? So the various binary file formats that is supportable by Python programming is none other than .dat, .bin, that is binary, and .jpg. So these are the various file formats that is supported by Python programming. Then further, we do have machine readable format like .py, etc. It depends on the end applications which we utilize to write or store our information. So this is a types of file formats. Clear? So let's move forward. Now let's understand what are the different operations that can be considered with respect to a file. Yes, absolutely. It starts with opening a file, then writing to a file, reading from a file, as well as error handling. So these are the operations that is supported by a file handling with respect to Python programming. But whenever we consider a file handling, then we have a correct set of life cycle that we have to follow, or that is the expected thing or the procedure that will be followed with respect to file handling. So it starts with creation of a file, then opening a file. Then if you want to read any of the information, then you have to go with reading from a file, then writing to a file. Up next, if anything has to be appended, yes, you can do that through appending it into a file. Then we can go forward with closing a file. Then after updating, if we want to go with a same name, yes, we can continue with that. Or if we want to rename it as an updated version, then yes, we can do that by renaming. Or sometimes after renaming, the old version is not at all required, so we can go forward with deleting those files. So these are the set of operations that is available with respect to a file, isn't it? So these things are must and should required for a user to write his information, to save his information, or to do any access or renaming, deleting, etc. Right? Isn't it? Yes, we need these things whenever we go with a file. Correct? Now let's see how to go with complete opening as well as closing a file. Clear? So if you want to open any of a file, then we can go with the keyword of open off. Similarly, if I want to close any of a file, then I can directly go with a close off function. Yes, let's see a syntax with an example, that is file equals open forward by the data that we are requesting to open followed by any of the variable. But with respect to close, we can directly go with file dot close, right? Now let's see what does this R represent. Whenever we go with this R, it has its own importance. Yes, it is a variable, but it has its own meaning. So now let's see what is it all about. So if I give a R, then it specifies that a data format has to be read. This file has to be read. Further, if I write a W, then this file has to be written. Clear? Then if I want to append anything within that file, then I can write A. And up next, if I want to do both the actions, that is read and write at the same time, then I can directly use this R plus. Clear? It's very, very easy and simple, right? So this is how we can go with file handling, and at the same time, we can go with opening and closing of a file. Now let's see how to write into a file. So by using this write off function, we can go with writing a single string into the file, but defaultly, if any of the information is available, then that will be overwritten if you use this write off operation. So now let's see a basic example for this, where we start with considering a file, that is opening a file. So this is with respect to writing a single string or a single line statement inside the file. Now, if I want to write the multiple lines inside a file, then which is the keyword we have to use? So let's move forward with it. We can use a keyword of write lines. So this is a keyword that is utilized to write multiple lines inside a file. Now let's see. Example, lines equals Python new line file /n. So /n says that we have to go with a new line. Clear? Next, again, I'm giving one more data, that is handling. Then the cursor has to move to the new line. All right. Now next, where it has to be updated. So it has to be updated in a file. So we are writing an open statement, open data.txt. So this is a text form of file in which this information has to be written, because we are using a variable W which has its own importance of writing, correct? So we are using that W, and once we open that file, we are asking to write these things inside that file by using which parameter? By using file.writeLines. Okay, it will write these lines into this file. Lastly, we have to go with closing that file. So that is file.closeOff. All right, at the output, we can see that we will be getting initially a Python, then followed by a file, then a handling, and the cursor will stop in the next line. So this is the output, and in this way we can write multiple lines inside a file. Now let's understand the importance of append command. So there is a keyword known as append, which is a method that is utilized in the Python programming, with respect to file operations. So now let's go with append. So what does it mean? Yes, absolutely. It means that we are appending some of the information or the values into a file. But how this information is been appended, the values, whatever we write, will be inserted in a last of the file. Clear? And one important thing to note is it does not delete any of the content of the file, because sometimes what happens, if you want to write anything into a file in some of the programming languages, once you start with writing, the previous content, whatever present is there in that file, will be deleted. But by using this append command, it's not the case. Only a new line will be added, or we can say that a new content will be added at the last of that file, and the previous content, whatever it is, it will be maintained as it is. All right, let's say an example for this. We are writing file equals open of a text file followed by a keyword. So what is that word we knew? Correct? So it's none other than a, which gives a meaning of appending a information into that file, that is data.txt text file. All right, what we have to write into that file? We have to write new line added. So it's up to us, whatever we want to write inside the file, we can provide that statement. Okay, the thing is provided. So you can see that /n is already utilized at the initial thing itself. Okay, so which says if anything is there or cursor is stuck anywhere, it has to go to the next line. And usually when we consider a, absolutely it will go to the last line of the file. Now, lastly, we have to close that file, right? Okay, at the output, as we know, previously we had some content, isn't it? What is the content that was present in data.txt? It is none other than Python followed by file followed by handling, and at the end, as we know, as it is a append command, we are appending this new thing, that is new line added statement. Okay, new line added. So this is how the append command works with respect to files. The next topic is reading from a file. So for this, the keyword that we use is none other than read of. Whenever we use this read of command, then this is responsible for reading the entire file content. Let's see example, file open of data.txt, and the variable that we use in order to read is r, correct? Now we have to write the read, correct? So for that, content equals file.read of followed by printing that content, and lastly, we have to close that file by using file.close. At the output, we can check here file handling new line added. So these are the content that was present inside that data.txt file, right? So this content is been read by using which command? By using file.readof command. So this is how we can read the content of a file. But what's the case if you want to go with reading multiple lines together? So that's the next thing that we will be learning, that is none other than read lines. This is nothing but reading files into a list of lines, and each line is sorted as a element in the list. Let's say an example for this, file open of data.txt, and again we are going with the R which says to read. All right, we are considering lines. Why? Because we have to go with reading multiple lines together, correct? All right, file.read lines of. So this is the function or the keyword that we are considering. Next, we are dealing with printing that lines. Okay, print lines, and at last we are writing a close statement. All right, at the output, can you expect what is that? Yes, each element is been sorted. You can see here first Python /n, the next element file /n, the next element handling /n, and the next line that we have appended is new line added. So why the /n are used? Because this is the thing which says that the elements are picked from multiple lines, isn't it? So this is how we will be getting at the output after execution of this code. Up next, let's go with keywords. So with is a keyword which is responsible for defining a file And once such operations are done, the file is closed automatically. There is no need of a closing statement like file.close. No, nothing. So that is not at all required here. Whenever we are using that with statement followed by opening a file, reading file, whatever it is, once that operation is done, then the file will be closed automatically. And we can say that this exactly is a safer as well as cleaner approach to deal with a file. So let's understand this with an example. We can see here with open followed by a file, that is data.txt, which is a text file, followed by R. We are considering a read operation, correct? Has file. Okay, this is a line that we are utilizing with keyword. All right. Now we are defining that we need a read operation. Great. Finally, we are printing that read file which is stored in the data. All right. After execution of this code, at the output, we can see that it is read. The file is being read. So file, handling, new line added. So this is the content of that file and it is being read. Done. So we can see here, we can notice that the file.close is not used here. Once it is initiated, after the completion of the operation, the file will be closed automatically. Clear? So we can say that by using with keyword, the process will be complete, safer as well as cleaner approach. Now let's see how to split a word from that file content. So in order to split that, we will be using split of keyword. Yes, so this is the keyword that is used, or we can also consider it has a method that is being utilized to split the content, and it uses strings as well as the list. Let's see an example for this. Here we are again using this with keyword with open of the file name data.txt followed by R has file. Okay, what is next? We want to read, or we want to go with splitting of the content. What we are writing? We are writing file.read.split of. So the initial thing, it has to read, then it has to split. Correct, right? So initially, if you read only, then you'll be understanding, okay, this has to be splitted. So it's the same thing that we follow over here with a splitting operation. And the next thing, we are going with printing that words. All right. After execution of this code, at the output, we can observe that the file is read, that is Python file, then handling. Up next, you might have seen in the last example. Let me go back. Over here, we have that content which is togetherly shown, which is like new line added, isn't it? So now let's move forward. Here we can observe that sentence is been splitted, isn't it? So the output will be in this way, new line added. All right, let's move forward with renaming the file. Yes, absolutely. This is one of important thing that a user expects. If any of a file is been updated, then at the same time it has to be renamed in order to maintain that file for future reference, correct? Thus, in order to rename a file, there is no separate keyword which has been utilized here. We will directly use OS to do so. Clear? Let's say an example here. Import OS. So this is a library where we are importing a OS. All right. Now, what is the thing we need? OS.rename. So initially we had our file name has data.txt, which has to be renamed with new word, that is new data.txt. Even now it is a text file format itself, but just the name will be changed. Thus, at the output, what is the thing that we can expect? The file name is being changed or updated successfully. So this is what the statement that we can expect with respect to the output. All right, now let's move forward with deleting a file. Yes, whenever a file is not at all required, then we can move with deleting that file so that our memory will be free and we can give space for files. Deleting is possible when exactly a file exists. If a file won't exist, then at that time, the delete will not happen. It will show error. Thus, let's say an example for this. Again, we need that OS in order to do these things, because it is related with OS only, correct? Deleting the file or accessing the file or closing that file. So these things are related to OS. So we are utilizing that library, that is import OS, followed by os.remove, which says that new data.txt. So this file has to be removed. Let's see after execution what is the thing that we get. It says if a file exists, then it says that file deleted successfully. If no files exist, then it will show some error. Thus, these are the things that was related to file handling, and we have successfully discussed in the session. In the upcoming session, that is in a session 3, we will be discussing regarding object-oriented programming concepts like classes, objects, creating a class and object, then followed by classes with multiple objects, how to create that, then how to use the objects as arguments as well as the written values, then followed by we will be understanding constructor and the types of constructor. In the same way, we will also be discussing inheritance, what is inheritance and what are its types. So these are the things that we discuss in our upcoming session. So this was all about today's session. Thank you.